Hello, everybody. Welcome again. Here we have Paul and Gary from ViewMyChain. How are you, gentlemen?
Very well, thank you very much.
Yeah, really good.
Good morning to you.
Good to see you.
Yes, hello again. Blast from the past, my good friend. We will talk about that over the course of the webinar. I'm absolutely sure. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here today. We're here to have a good catch up, a much overdue catch up actually about ViewMyChain. Title is Sales Progression's New Best Friend. Obviously, that's going to get a few people's attention, given that often it doesn't feel like it's the best friend to many people out there. And I think that's probably why you guys are here, isn't it? Really, it is such a contentious, tough area. A lot of agents and indeed conveyancers need help and support on this side of things. Do you want to just get us kicked off with that? Let's start right at the beginning then. So why was ViewMyChain launched? Who's going to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll take that to start off with. I think everybody who's involved in buying and selling houses realizes that the process could be slicker. It's difficult. Fall throughs, with perhaps a third of properties not actually making it to completion. There's an awful lot of time and money wasted by everybody concerned. We are all about really doing three things. We're about reducing the amount of admin that it takes to actually get a property across the line. So reducing the amount of time that's spent with people waiting in phone queues to get some info back. We're about making completions faster, so getting the keys in the hands of the home buyer faster, and increasing certainty, reducing that fall through rate by making sure that everybody in the chain knows what's going on. I mean, it's a problem people have identified for years, and certainly people have given it a different, many different ways of trying to solve this problem. But we've got a product that is up, live, running, delivering value. We're contracted to over 1,000 branches, so I think we've made some real progress here.
And it's a triple whammy of issues that everyone's going to feel familiar with, and will just say, "Yes, tell me how to solve," isn't it? What you've just highlighted to us there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the process. I mean, well, I go back to when I first started in agency, and I don't think the problem's got any easier. If anything, it's probably just got worse over time. So yeah, it's refreshing, because I think on average, I know from my experience, the time it takes to actually get the information that you're looking for outside of your own link in the chain. You obviously, conveyancers are going to talk to you, that are involved, for your buyer and seller. But beyond that, trying to get information is just is very, very difficult. And it's the timeliness of that as well, Simon. I think it's finding out problems often too late to be able to do anything about it. How many agents call you to tell you that the buyer 2 links down has fallen through? The reality of the industry is that those sorts of calls don't tend to happen. And what happens is that an agent will find out 3 weeks down the line, when suddenly the new buyer's been slotted into place. And what do you do? Well, is the buyer that you might well have switched to 3 weeks ago still available? Maybe not. Have you then got to manage everyone's expectations to now fit in with a new transaction time that might eventually cause a problem? Or again, it's all these kind of elements that will add to potential risk of fall throughs, which I think just giving sight of information at the right time just takes agents out of the dark. It brings them back into the light so that they can actually do something about it, and talk to their clients about it.
You can act on information, can't you? Frankly, obviously, it's just an obvious one. If you don't know, you can't do anything.
Exactly that. And so often agents are on the brunt of an unhappy client going, well, why didn't you tell me? Why have I heard it from someone else? Or why didn't we know about this 2 or 3 weeks ago? Those are the sorts of things that agents unfortunately have to try and deal with.
And maybe it's worth a tiny recap for anybody who's not seen the solution, just to talk through what it is that we do. So we provide a visualization of the whole chain of properties. Yep. So we build that automatically in the background. We're not relying on a network of agents to manually input things into ViewMyChain. We have
that's a critical one there. Sorry, Paul. So
absolutely,
they don't have to key this information in, which of course would be a massive blocker now.
No, they don't. We have a collection of data partners who provide us with chain data. So once we built that chain, then we update the progress of each property in the chain, and we flag things like fall-through alerts when we think a chain link has been broken, so the agent can act on that straight away. When we demo it, it's quite interesting because, you know, when someone comes in for the first time, they're not really expecting all of their data to be there, all of the data on the chains that they're involved in. And it is. And you kind of get the, oh, have you cheated? And no, we haven't. The system is using the data to build the chains and update those chains all the time. So when someone logs on, then the data for the chains they're already involved in has been updated already.
Yeah. Well, I can talk about that really, really clearly as well, because I sat in a demonstration of ViewMyChain in an earlier iteration as well, just to be clear. And I sat with a fairly large corporate who, let's be fair, doesn't get impressed easily. And there was that light bulb moment. I mean, definitely, they could understand exactly what this could provide in terms of the transparency, in terms of the flow of information, in terms of cutting down on all of the fall throughs and everything else. So I think it's a really proof's in the pudding, of course, and the fact you, as you said yourself, you've got over 1,000 offices, tells you everything you need to know on that.
Yeah, and on average, Simon, you know, we're saving about 60% of the current effort that goes in to get, you know, to get that same information, assuming that the agents can actually get it, you know, at all, which in a lot of cases that, you know, is not always the case. I think the other bit for me as well, and putting my sort of ex-estate agency hat on, is the value of the product, not just at the sales progression stage, but also prior to that. Because the challenge that agents have in trying to verify chain information when they've got offers, you know, often agents are getting multiple offers in on the same property. You know, how do you know who's the best buyer? So you can utilize the same technology to verify the chain information. So again, it just makes that whole process when you're making any recommendations to your clients much easier. You know, get each deal off to the best start. At least having that sort of visibility of the whole chain at a very early stage is going to hopefully prevent any nasty surprises in the first few weeks when maybe the chain is slightly different to what you first interpreted, or maybe how far that chain is progressed, you know, is slightly different to what you were first led to believe.
Or maybe you didn't know there was a chain.
Well, that leads into quite a nice thing.
I mean, I was doing a demo. He doesn't often let me do demos, but we were actually I was doing a demo, and the quite high-end agency that we talk about deals with multi-million-pound properties pretty much exclusively. We're saying, oh well, none of my properties are in a chain, and I was thinking, well, this is pretty disastrous. This is clearly not going to go that well. And we bring up the properties, and we see that there's a chain there. And so we click into this property, and the gentleman who was on the call was saying, no, it's not in the property. Then there's a little voice off says, oh, that's the cash buyer that we can't get proof of funds for. And, you know, 25 grand's worth of commission sitting there. And it turns out there is a related property sale that they just weren't aware of. I mean, it turned into quite a good demo after that. And they did in fact sign up. But you can see that ViewMyChain shines a light in a lot of places that it's quite hard to get information normally.
Yeah. And I think the key thing is
demo gods have been kind there.
Well, in that particular case, exactly. Absolutely.
And it's pushed to the agent. And I think this is the thing, you know, it's giving people a reason to go to, you know, ViewMyChain, because there's information, fresh information there every day. I mean, we're processing about 11,000 updates a day from the various data partners that we have. We process them overnight, push them out to the agents each morning. So literally, you know, every morning when you log in, you've got the most up-to-date view based on sort of everything up to yesterday.
I think we're talking about what's different about ViewMyChain now and the version of ViewMyChain that Connell's signed up to, different from the one that existed pre-COVID.
And I think that's really important, Paul, isn't it? Because a lot of people, I think we were saying this off camera, that, you know, lots of people, when they hear a name, when they see the initial launch, get caught up with, okay, that's what it does and always will do it. And there is a challenge because there's, as you know, famously, there's over 1,000 suppliers just on our platform there. Staying in touch with what's changed, what's important is really, really difficult. And that's why, you know, catch-ups like this are really, 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 really vital.
Yeah. Well, the first version of ViewMyChain used to do updates on milestones, and it relied on the agent to manually key in their chain.
Yeah,
which was great. Some people would, some people didn't really want to. What it became clear to us really during COVID was that if we could crack that automated chain building in the background, so when someone logs in for the first time or in the morning, their chains are there, being updated, being broken, being built in near real time, that's really powerful. And that's what the new ViewMyChain post-COVID, that's how it was different from version 1. And that's very much the product that's been delivering value to the clients we've been signing up over the last year or so.
And I think that's what's fascinating there, Paul, as well. If you look, Gary, I can see you kind of looking at it from my angle is, you know, lots of the CRMs had that basic functionality. And of course, the problem with CRMs is they have to be, they're specialists in generalism, aren't they? They have to do absolutely everything, but that means they can't go very deep. And so in this particular area, yes, you're reliant on people rekeying this information. So I can only think about it from my point of view to have that automated chain building information in there. You know, just the look on the team's faces that they're going to have that to their hands without having to do anything is a big, and that's really important, because I think one of the problems that, you know, PropTech needs to take it on the chin is it's promised agents it's going to help them do more with less, and a lot of the time it doesn't actually feel like that. Whether that's you know, multiple signings, transferring from one system to another, actually often it can actually add to a person's workload. So this again is a key area.
I completely agree, and obviously, you know, we can talk firsthand of the experience, you know, experience of that. But I think the key thing for me is the fact that, you know, the data is there. The data, you know, the data is being pushed to the agent every day. Now, I think the other benefit from an agent's point of view is the fact that, you know, they're generally busy people, right? You know, often they're multitasking. You know, the person who's progressing the deal might be the person who's out valuing houses, you know, doing viewings, managing a team. You know, these aren't always necessarily dedicated sales progressors, yet actually the deal is probably the most important part of the overall transaction. And yet often such little time is available to spend to dedicate to, you know, to do that. So I think by us being able to push a lot of the information to agents, it's allowing them, for the time they have got, to focus in on the things that they really need to spend the time doing. You know, they can highlight the issues, the bottlenecks much sooner, and they can get to those and deal with those, rather than, as I say, always, you know, well, not always, but maybe often feeling like they're on the back foot, or, you know, a little bit in the dark really with the transaction.
It's a terrible state of affairs, and I'll be really honest. You know, at the end of last year, I think we released that we could see, because of our dashboards, who's adding suppliers, who's taking off suppliers, that we could see the amount of churn of suppliers, which was at its highest than from the first month of lockdown when everyone was clearing it out. And I don't want to make light of it, but you know, they're obviously in the wider consumer world, there's food banks there. It's almost like, you know, we're reaching that sort of angle in a estate agency. The amount of companies that are struggling at the moment because their pipelines are so drawn out, the cash flow is so terrible, they're coming to us almost with a fire sale kind of approach, saying we've just got to cut our monthly, our monthly spend on tech and things like that, because this is such a problem. So, you know, nobody can ignore it, even if you're just trying to be optimized and turn your pipeline 3 or 4 times. I mean, that's a dream to most people these days.
I mean, we're all about turning, you know, making sure that the pipeline converts better. We reckon we have saved 17 days for Connells off their time to complete, and there's a very nice video from David Plumtree up on our website talking about that. We reckon that across the base we're saving about 8% in terms of fall throughs. So it's turning into material business cases. I mean, at the beginning, you know, before we had any customers, we obviously hoped that it was going to convert into real money. But we're now presenting cases where it's about 20 to 1. We did one actually the week before last, pretty sizable one. For every £1 spent on ViewMyChain, if they hit the averages that we believe the base are getting, they should get £20 back for each. Now, we're never going to promise that in blood, but it's kind of indicative of, of the fact that it's making a real difference. It's making a real difference to agents getting their hands on the cash.
Now, this is these ROI stats are absolutely outstanding, and everyone's going to be noting this down, and obviously, hopefully, thinking, they need to have this conversation with you. Each conversation, I understand, an ROI argument is different, so that's why obviously we'll be encouraging them to reach out to you and have that chat with you at the end. The key thing I want to understand, though, is sometimes with a lot of, especially tech solutions, is that when it's bedded down, that's absolutely great, but it can be really, really hard to get the ball rolling, to get it, CRM famously a really difficult onboarding process because you've got so many different things to go. How easy is it to implement? Is it one of those months to settle down? And does it take much training? Give us some sort of idea and context around that, if you don't mind.
No, it's a really valid question, I suppose, and I appreciate with a lot of agents with tech, particularly where there's data involved, there's always that fear factor of, okay, migration is a horrible word, and a lot of people have a pain point with that. But for us, it's really simple. I mean, we've got a couple of ways of using the application. Some are sort of more deeply embedded within the CRMs. Others are via our API. But in both cases, typically, as long as the agent is available to verify the information, at the times when we need them to, normally within a couple of weeks, the customer's up and running. It's a really simple process, and I can say that with confidence, having come from some quite complex migrations in the past.
It was so complex, Gary, that famously I never understood really what went on.
Well, no, exactly that. Other than you just saw the life draining out of people that were generally involved in it, that was normally the case. But no, it's really quite refreshing. For me, when I joined the business last year, it's a nice, simple process for any customer coming on board. And the training, the only thing I can liken it to is that it's a bit like an iPhone, really. That if you're used to using an iPhone, you don't generally need to have training when you've got the latest version installed on it. And if you're used to dealing with sales progression, you don't really need to have that much, there's not that much training involved to get up and running. So typically about half an hour is what we have with any new starter. And we will follow that up, to get people using it, get people integrated with it. A couple of weeks, we have sort of regular sessions with them just to make sure, because inevitably, you'll train them to get them started, and there'll be an instance somebody might have forgotten something or just come across something slightly, those nuances. But yeah, it's a nice simple process, and I think that in itself for the customers that have come on board, it's been quite refreshing, because I think there's no major impact to a business when implementing ViewMyChain, which is often a consideration for a lot of businesses, holding back on taking new tech, because as attractive as it might be, it's like, oh my God, right, well, we're really busy, we haven't got the time to do this right now. But that really shouldn't be a reason to hold back on it at all, because it's nice and simple.
And we've spoken. Sorry, Paul, go on.
So ViewMyChain is super easy to implement. The data integrations are already there. The data is already being processed. So there's no migration required at all. We're not asking people to use a new system. This doesn't really require anybody to change fundamentally the way they work. What we're doing is we're giving them more information to know where they should be focusing their time during their very busy working day. If you're working in one of the CRMs that we're tightly integrated with, I think we're on record of talking about Reapit quite a lot. So you're actually working within the Reapit system. You're not logging on to anything different. And as such, it's pretty self-evident. If you've done sales progression before, you're going to recognize this straight away. I hesitate to say there's literally no training, but there's so little that it's not really meaningful. And that's true whether you're working in your CRM, or if you happen to be working in a CRM that we're not integrated with at the moment, you'll be working in our web application. And again, that's pretty self-evident. It's content. It tells you what's going on and allows you to carry on working the way that you were previously.
That you just said there as well is one of the top 3 issues that agents have when we talk to them about suppliers. You know, there's too many suppliers, they don't work closely enough. So it sounds like, you know, having that really tight foundation style integration with it, where again, you're coming from as a repeat client. I can already imagine, Gary, you can imagine it too, going and talking to those business principals and then rolling their eyes about adding something else to that Jenga pile of suppliers, tech suppliers, just adding it on top. This isn't, is it? This is keeping it. This is what everybody wants to have going forwards.
Yeah, definitely. And the ease of use has to be, you know, it has to be you know, right there up at the top of the list for us as well, because the moment something appears to be complicated to either implement or indeed use, but then clearly, you know, you're not going to get the adoption. But thankfully, it ticks both those boxes.
So we spoke about savings in admin, obviously to reduce time to complete and the lower fall through rate. Any other problems? I feel a bit greedy here, asking you what have you done for me lately. Any more problems that ViewMyChain is looking to solve?
I think what we're working on at the moment, though it's not, we've not launched it yet, and we'll be looking to take that to market in the second quarter, is we're looking to make ViewMyChain potentially a disbursement, which the home buyer will pay for through their conveyancing service. So the pitch, yet to be refined, would be all the benefits we've just been talking about, plus at no cost to user. So that's where we are at the moment. We're still pulling that together. It won't be until, you know, late on in the second quarter that we get out. And I think, you know, frankly, the benefits from using ViewMyChain as it is at the moment, you know, the business cases we've been talking about are pretty good. But if we can add that to it as well, I think it broadens the number of agents who will feel able in these challenging times to be able to try the product out.
That would be really interesting to see. And as somebody who was lucky enough to see the Australian market and the ridiculous level of disbursements they're able to get with vendor paid advertising for literally everything here, is that you can imagine how compelling that pitch can be for the homeowner, though, isn't it, in terms of what it's going to provide for them and why they would want to take advantage of that. So
I think everyone's calling for that transparency. So making that transparency available for everybody makes a lot of sense, right? You know, even to the point that, you know, parking the disbursement element for a second, you know, being able to utilize the data and maybe sharing elements of that through our API back to customer portals that agents might already have, you know, that's quite a hot topic as well with a number of our customers and potential customers right now. So yeah, I mean, look, you know, all of that information is available to share if agents want to share that, you know. And we haven't necessarily launched a consumer facing one for that. I think agents tend to sit on the fence with that sort of thing. It's like, well, I kind of want to share some information with my customer, but I might not want them to have complete visibility of what I see as an agent. So the API becomes the best way for them to then, I guess, condense that information down into a way that they want to present it to, you know, back to their customers. So, you know, that also is available.
I can really see that working well with your home flows, your Starberries, you know, your estate app, people like that are able to provide those vendor portals or client portals. Yeah. This would be absolutely right.
Exactly, and all the time it's reducing the calls to the agents, and it just, you know, because there's that balance, isn't there? You don't want tech to kind of completely remove the customer engagement, because that's ultimately what, you know, I still firmly believe we're a people-based industry. Agency is, you know. But if you can present more of that information, give more of the visibility through those types of mechanisms, then Yeah, why wouldn't you?
It puts you back in control. We had a lot of kickback, you'll remember, in the early days of those portals. And oh, yeah, we're a people business. We want to talk to. The point is, stops that just nagging phone call. What's happening? What's this? They've got the information in front of them. You can see that they're seeing that information, and allows you to be much more proactive then, because you're not dealing with so many just admin calls, aren't you?
Exactly.
No,
Exactly.
that's very, very true. And of course, that same line of logic applies back up the chain from estate agents to conveyancers. So we've got many thousands of properties being updated by the conveyancer who's working on that property. And, some of the conveyancers, we have the conversation about, if you give us the data, the world will be a better place. Everybody will, and then there's the light bulb moment there, which is, so if we give you updates onto the ViewMyChain platform, people are not going to phone us up to ask for those updates. There is your ka-ching moment, because the conveyancer sees the information being put through the platform means that they don't have to answer the phone. And we've actually got, well, it looks like a couple of customers are actually going to have their panels, they're going to mandate their panels to provide information to the platform to save the agent's time. They won't have to sit in a queue waiting for someone to pick up the phone to tell them where a particular property is. They'll know by logging on to ViewMyChain.
Excellent. And I was going to ask you any further examples of results you're getting. You mentioned obviously Connell saving over 17 days in terms of reduced time to complete. One of the other things that we were talking about was that you were saying that ViewAgent has the potential to return you £20 for every £1 you invest in the system. I mean, that's a hell of an ROI. Just talk us through how you're calculating it. Is that just a combination of all those factors we've already been looking at?
It's essentially, I mean, anybody who speaks to Gary, we have a great spreadsheet we'll share, which we won't bore everybody with today. And plus it is specific to anybody's individual business. But essentially it's made up of the time saved in the effort of chasing updates. The time that you get your cash quicker because the completion comes through faster, and the reduced number of fall throughs. So commissions that you actually achieve rather than lose through a fall through. So it's a combination of those three. It'll be, some businesses will see a return, but not 20 to 1. Some will see more. But if you talk to Gary, go through the details.
Doing it well, you're going to see some ROI, and that's the critical factor. Apart from all the fantastic efficiency savings and saving the hassle and everything else, that's great to hear. And so, I mean, obviously, I always normally ask at this point, the price point about it. But from understanding you, this does need to be a custom conversation with you guys to understand, because there's so many different factors, isn't there, around the number of transactions, how you do things within the business. So is that what the next step is for people who want to understand what their ROI is? Jump on that call with you?
Yeah, definitely, Simon. I mean, what each of our prospects are doing at the moment is, they'll book a discovery call. During the discovery call, it's more a consultation really for us, just to get to understand their business, transactions, and then we can literally, on that call, we can go through what the ROI estimates are based on those numbers. We can literally do it during that call. But what's quite interesting as well is during those sessions, again, it's getting agents to sort of think about it being more than just that sales progression tool. I know we kind of mentioned previously, but conversations are starting in the living room, when agents are going out to actually pitch for the business, because technology can be used to empower confidence with your potential client. The confidence to know that actually, we've got this sort of information available, Mr. Vendor. So, you can be sure that at the point at which we're coming to you with offers, we're giving you arguably a better view than you would have potentially with an agent that didn't have ViewMyChain technology, available. And I think how agents use it. I mean, every agent's looking for that USP, right? Something that they can do and they can talk about in the living room that separates them from everybody else. And it was quite interesting to get that feedback that people are starting that conversation literally at the valuation stage. And of course, then it comes to fruition at offer stage, because the moment you then get offers, and often there's multiple that come in on the same property, suddenly you can then start using the technology that we've got to present, you know, the full chain information at that stage.
Perfect,
So.
perfect, good stuff. So I'm going to ask, because you've been really, really kind as well, giving kerfuffle members a saving over whatever the price point is, which we'll come back to in a second. But if I'm just to recap then again here, so essentially ViewMyChain brings the keys in the home buyer's hands faster. That's an obvious one if they're using this platform effectively. The fewer fall throughs obviously gives you more certainty, better pipeline and everything else. And I think the one that's going to appeal to everyone, where they've got so many more staff doing so much more, sorry, so less staff doing so much more, is just reducing that estate agent's burden in the first place, isn't it? Those three whammies really double down on all of those points you were just hitting there, from what I understand. So just for our kerfuffle members there, what's the saving those guys can save in terms of percent?
Yeah, so anybody that reaches out through Kerfuffle Simon, we're happy to offer a 10% discount. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, book a discovery call.
They're good people. They're good people, kerfufflers.
They are.
They deserve that. So you're very, very kind. Thank you. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to be very interested on. There's loads we've been talking about there. I'd like to start seeing the updates from that as well. And you know, this sounds like a really exciting area, because it's dealing with, just very simply, one of the biggest problems you've got at the moment in this industry, isn't it? And anyone can help out on that front has got to be applauded, I think. So you know, hats off to you. Guys, thank you so much for today, and we will catch up soon.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thanks a lot, Simon.
Good to see you.